Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 17th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin. I'm joined by my co-host on Monday and Tuesdays, Mr. Big Marcel. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, man? All good. Same thing as yesterday. So, yeah.
I don't even know why I ask you, Marcel. You're always in such a great mood, man. It's just be like, all right, Marcel, let's just get right into it. But no, I'm kidding. You know, I'm looking forward to talking about this card with you. Man, this is an interesting card, guys. Like, there's a lot of really evenly matched fights on this card. If you look at the betting odds, a lot of pick 'em fights on this card. So there's some tough ones to pick, but I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you, Marcel. There's a bunch of fights I'm really curious to hear your input on. And if you guys want in the chat, give us your thoughts on who you guys like as well. All right, so let's get into it, Marcel. Let's just get right into this card. And the first thing I wanted to mention is there is one change to it. We mentioned yesterday in the podcast that Trevin Jones, Manny Martinez, that fight's been scrapped. Trevin Jones has a new opponent, Marcel. Do you just want to talk about his opponent really quick? We don't have odds for this fight, but I'm imagining Trevin Jones will be the favorite. But do you want to talk about his opponent? I'll give my thoughts on them too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that you didn't pronounce his name and just say.
That's why I'm pretty. Okay, no, actually, you know what? Let me do it because I.
Okay,
go
on.
Okay, hold on. Because I listened to John Morgan on he was calling the fight for CFFC. I think he pronounced it right. Let me see what his name is. Okay, so it's Saeed Kurmagomedov, I think, or something. Is that what it is?
Saeed Yakub Kahramanov.
It was close. It's a tough name. Anyways, go ahead. Give me your thoughts on this one.
So, this dude is actually the current CFFC bantamweight champion. He defeated Tyson Lin in the second round KO last time out. But actually, maybe his biggest win is against Askar. He won against him when he was undefeated, knockout punch, first round. People might also know him from Ring of Combat, but probably they know him from PFL, where he fought Umar Nurmagomedov in a non-tournament fight in the regular season bout, non-tournament. And he lost that fight, but it was a crafty fight. It was actually his first loss in MMA. For that, he's a solid fighter, man. I mean, I think it's a fun matchup, you know. By the way, do you happen to know with Mana Martinez? I saw him posting that.
So I think it wasn't an injury, guys. His coach died.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, his coach died, I think today or yesterday from COVID, which is terrible. You want to talk about his coach a little bit because he was a guy who was on the Ultimate Fighter a couple times as well. I think his name is also Saeed, right?
So Sol Salis, I think.
Yeah.
Sol Salis.
Let me pull it up here on Junkie. I'll pull it up here. We'll talk about this really quick.
Cool.
I don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but I do want to mention that. Again, we don't have odds for this fight, but it's worth talking about. So I know Junkie had this story. Here it is. Salis. What's his name? Yeah, here we go. Sal Salis. Yeah. Very sad. And Nolan wrote the story. But yeah, he coached on with Team Ortiz on season 3 and 11 of the Ultimate Fighter. So this is a guy that you've probably seen on TV, guys, which is crazy. And he was the coach of Adrian Yanez and Manny Martinez. So very, very sad. But anyways, Marcel, give me your thoughts on the fight, though. Like, again, we don't have odds on this fight, but would you expect Trevin Jones to get the win, or do you think his opponent has a chance here?
His opponent definitely has a chance, man. I mean, we all saw the first round against Valiev, you know, remember? But besides that, Jones has looked amazing in the UFC, I think. So I would favor Jones in this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kahramanov can surprise here, because I don't think it's not an easy, it's not becoming an easier matchup or whatever. I think it's still a difficult matchup for both guys.
Saeed Yakub Kahramanov, is that right? Am I good?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Okay, cool. Guys, he's actually a good fighter, man. He's fun. I didn't I've heard of him, but I couldn't really put a face to his fighting style to the name. You know what I mean? So I go and watch the fight with Askar, knocks him out brutally. Great knockout. The guy's got some power. He's got some skill for sure. But, you know, Trevin Jones is a guy that I'm very high on, Marcel. Like, I think he's very, very good bantamweight. And, you know, it's a shame this is his, fourth opponent because the guy keeps cutting weight and getting a new opponent. But hopefully this fight lasts. And, it should be a good one. But I'd imagine Jones will be favored, guys. I don't think it's a complete lock by any means. I think his opponent definitely has a chance. It kind of reminds me of that Worley Alves fight a few months ago, or maybe a few weeks ago. I can't remember. Where he fought that Jeremiah Wells guy, where Wells looked good on tape, but you know, the situation was tough. I couldn't pick him. This is kind of the same thing. I think this guy actually looks like a really good fighter. He did get flying knee knocked out. You can see that. It's on Twitter somewhere. You could see that knockout. But you know, you can't say he's got a bad chin because I see some people already say, "Oh, this guy's chin." I don't think you could say that because he got knocked out with a flying knee. I do think there's a chance he could get KO'd here for sure, but I just don't think it's fair to say he's a chinny fighter. All right, Marcel, let's get into the fights we have odds for. So let's start with the welterweight bout, Sasha Palatnikov versus Ramiz Brahimaj. And for this fight, it's very close odds, minus 125 for Ramiz Brahimaj, plus 105 for Sasha Palatnikov. What do you think, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, Ramiz almost got his ear detached in his last fight against Max Griffin. Was actually first was he supposed to make his debut on the Contender Series, but he had like a tumor behind his eye, and he needed surgery there, so that they took that away. Was supposed to fight Takashi Sato, then somebody in his corner got COVID, then Griffin. It's actually Ramiz needs to get normally a quick finish in the fight. In all of his fights where he won and looked good, he had a quick finish, or at least in the first round. I think he has one time he went to the second round, was against UFC veteran William Macario, the Brazilian guy in LFA. But besides that, he has a 100% finishing record. Lost 3 times in his career, and all 3 fights went to the third round, 2 with decision, and 1 got stopped because of that ear almost being detached. So if you look at the other side, you look at Sasha Palatnikov. Palatnikov actually looked amazing in the third round against Luis Cosi, if you remember. And that was, I think that went also for fight of the night, if I'm correctly. I'm not 100% sure anymore. But in my opinion, he didn't look that great against Empa Kasanganay. I think he looked great in the beginning, but then it kind of faded, and Kasanganay knew what to do, and he put him in his favor. So for me, it's like, the longer the fight goes, Sasha Palatnikov probably has more ways to win, but Ramiz can stop him, man, in the first round, I think. And I'm going to bet that one. I think I'm going with Ramiz in the first round.
Yeah, this is a tough fight to call. I think there's a bunch of fights in this card that I think are pretty difficult to call. I see this as a pretty close fight, man. Brahimaj, his submission game is fantastic for sure. Nasty subs. But you look at his record, guys. He's only 2-3 in his last 5 fights. I mean, that is not very good. I know that Sasha's 2-2, but still 2-3. The guy that can be beaten. Coming off a layoff, pretty long layoff for that ear injury. I know layoffs are a huge thing, right? He could have got better, I guess, during that time off. But Sasha's been pretty active. He had 2 fights, and I know he lost to Inpa, but I mean, no one was expecting to win that fight. You know what I mean, Marcel? So I don't know. I think it's a close fight, but to me, like, Brahimaj has got the ground game for sure. If the fight goes to it's an easy way to break it down, but if the fight goes to the ground, Brahimaj has a good chance to submit him. I think if the fight stays standing, though, I think Sasha's the better striker. I think so. So I think it's a close fight, man, but my slight lean is towards Sasha. It's very close. He's like, what, plus 105? He's barely an underdog. It's basically a pick-em fight. I just think he has more ways to win the fight because I think he can win standing, possibly on the ground too, whereas Brahimaj, I think, is just the ground game, really. I think he could win. So we'll see. I mean, I could be wrong with this one, but I'm leaning a little towards Sasha. Daniel says he likes Ramiz. He wasn't doing that bad against Griffin before his ear got knocked off. Yeah, that was nasty. I always remember how much people slated Sasha and lead up to his fight. Let's stick that there and fade him long term. Maybe. I mean, listen, I'm not saying Sasha Palatnikov is a great fighter or anything. He's got some serious chin issues, but he's not facing a striker in this fight. I've never really seen Ramiz hurt someone with his hands, really, right? Like he's really a submission guy, and he has great submissions. I don't know, man. I mean, Palatnikov, I understand what happened in that last fight. It's not good to wait. No hook, rear naked choke, but there's some other reasons going in that fight. And I heard him talk to James. I listened to both guys' interviews. Both guys are definitely like smart fighters, and I'm looking forward to the fight. But one thing he mentioned, Marcel, is he was fighting Impa at 8:30 in the morning Vegas time. He gets up every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. He had to get up at 4:30. That ruined his kind of just pattern. He's a creature of habit. And I actually do think there is something to that. So I'm not saying that's the reason he lost the fight. Impa was going to win that fight, I think, either way. But there is something to that, and I do think that's maybe the reason he just faded so badly in that second round. He wasn't there mentally, maybe. So I'm not sure, guys. I think it's a close fight. I'm going to lean towards Sasha, but it's very, very close. Zach, hey, what's up, man? Are you guys going to talk about PFL, Bellator, World? There's no third podcast now anymore, man. I have a child now, so it's very difficult to do that third show as much as I want to do it. Plus, AJ was my co-host, and unfortunately, he can't do the show with me anymore. So it was just a decision we made. If we have time at the end of this podcast, we can talk about it briefly, but I can't go and do a full breakdown if it goes past the full hour. But we'll try, Zach. We'll try. All right, Marcel, let's go to the next fight here. Roosevelt Roberts versus Ignacio Bahamundis. This should be a good fight, too. Roosevelt Roberts, minus 145. Ignacio Bahamundis, plus 125. What do you think, man?
Well, I think Roosevelt Roberts might be fortunate that he got another fight because, man, the Kevin Kroon one that got overturned in a no contest. I really think they probably would have cut him if he doesn't get the no contest there. But I'm happy for him. He got another fight. I think he's a talented guy. Um, but the thing is, I was really positive on Roosevelt Roberts when he started his UFC career. He looked really good, man. Then against Vince Pichel was kind of a still think it was kind of a close fight, but Pichello won the fight, in my opinion. Against Jim Miller, got completely dominated and got finished in the first round. And against Kevin Kroon, it took 30 seconds or something, and Kevin Kroon had him in that guillotine.
Yep.
So against Bahamundis, I got to be honest, man, that Bahamundis fight against McDessie was an amazing fight.
Amazing fight.
Say.
Incredible.
It was actually on the same. I think it was on the same card as Palatnikov against Kasangana, if I think about it, because I know where I watched that. And
it was on the ABC card. I think you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was a very early card for here. So it's like it's actually difficult, man, because I like Ignacio Bahamundis. I think he's a good fighter, but I wouldn't put my money on it. You know what I mean? Because I think Roosevelt Roberts has some things in his arsenal where he can beat Bahamundis. If I look at the complete package, man, I gotta think that if there's not going to be a stoppage, I would kind of favor Bahamundis getting the win, man, via decision here.
There you go. So Roosevelt Roberts has been, to me, very disappointing in the UFC. A guy that I think had a lot of hype coming in from Contender Series, and his first couple of fights looked really good, getting submission and stuff. But as he's kind of went up the ladder, you've kind of seen that he's hit that wall. And against Kevin Kroon, he gets dropped and gets submitted in 30 seconds. That's just a bad look, any way you look at it. I don't trust the guy anymore at all, Marcel. Like, he's definitely got some things to like about him. He's a big dude for this division, no doubt about it. Very, very tall and everything. But I don't know. I don't trust him a lot, man. And don't get me wrong, he's got good grappling, and if he sticks to a grappling-based approach, he can win this fight. Because Bahamundis, I really like this guy's striking, and he's got some submissions too, but his takedown defense is not very good. So I think Roberts could get him down, but I think, this guy has been improving his takedown defense, and he's super young, Marcel. He's only 23 years old, right? So this is a guy that's improving. He's training at Valley Flow. He's training with those guys like Bilal Muhammad and those guys. So he's training with a good camp now. And I think that this guy is going to make some improvements. And, quite frankly, that John McDessie fight was very razor thin. Had he won that fight, just say he won the split decision, I don't think he would be the underdog here. So I actually think there's some slight value here on Bahamundis. I think it's a competitive fight, don't get me wrong. But if I had to pick someone, Marcel, and I have to, I'm gonna take the dog here with I'm with you, man. I'm gonna take the dog here. Go with Bahamundis because I think he has more ways to win. I think he's the much better striker too. So if he can keep his distance and keep it range, use those kicks, he can win this fight. But again, if Roberts closes the distance, gets him down to the ground, holds him there, wouldn't surprise me if that happened. He could win the fight. But I just lean towards Ignacio because I like the guy's upside, man. I think he's got a lot of upside in the sport, and I find him very exciting to watch. I got these comments. Hey, Tristan, what's up? If you skip back to the beginning of the podcast, we talked about I can't I forgot the guy's name already, but yeah, we talked about Trevor Jones' new opponent. Kakramanov, that's his name. Kakramanov. I got it. It's locked in my brain now. We talked about it. We think he's good. I think he's actually very good. But again, the situation, 5 days notice, that's the problem. It's if he had a full camp, I think it'd be a more competitive fight, I guess. But with such a short camp, Marcel, I can't pick that guy. You know what I mean? But he's good. He's a good prospect. Daniel says he likes Roberts. Bahamundis didn't show enough power in his last fight. Roberts has some better fighters than him. Point fighting wins. Bahamundis' path to victory. Yeah, Bahamundis got jabbed by the smaller fighter McDessie. I mean, McDessie is one of the most underrated guys in that division. He's one of the best strikers. He's one of the best strikers in that division. I don't think it's as bad of a loss as it might have looked at the time. I think it's not that bad of a loss. And also the thing is, Bahamundis has got nasty subs too, guys. He can sub Roberts too on the ground. So to me, he's got more ways to win. That's why I'm picking him. And Marcel, you're picking Bahamundis too, right?
Yeah.
There we go. So we both lean towards the dog. All right, next one here. I'm going on UFC stats, guys. So if there's a different order, that's the reason. William Knight against Fabio Charante. That's the next one, Marcel. William Knight minus 195, Fabio Charante plus 168. Give me your thoughts on this fight.
I have to ask you, did you saw the interview with Fabio Charante and Alex Bahunin from Cage Side Press?
No, I didn't see it. What happened?
Okay. So Alex asked him,
is this the weight cutting guy? Was this the guy? Okay, tell me what happened. I want to hear about this. What happened?
Alex asked him about the last fight. He said you didn't make weight for the last fight. How do you make sure it's not going to happen again? He's like, yeah, dude, I had COVID before it, and it's stupid. He's like, I always made weight. I never went over 205. And then Alex didn't say anything, but if you look at his
I know he missed
apology,
weight. Yeah.
222, 225 or whatever, he missed weight 2 times already over 205. So, and he had a full rant about it, that there wasn't his fault, that he couldn't do anything about it, and it was kind of odd, and Alex will try to be really, really nice about it. There wasn't any hostility or whatever, but he had something like, it just was really weird, man. I mean, if you miss weight 3 times, you're not gonna say like, I only missed weight 1 time. But okay, whatever. He also said like, I had to make weight a week earlier to fight for the LFA title, which is true. Now he's fighting William Knight. Yeah, William Knight, man. I mean, he is such a short guy for light heavyweight, right?
Yep.
We talked about it last time. You were 100% sure that Dawn Young was going to defeat him. I wasn't sure, but you were right. Dawn Young pretty much played with him in that octagon. It was actually pretty impressive to see. If you look at Fabio Charante, he lost by Van Vloed choke against Alonzo Menefield. People still losing by Van Vloed choke in 2021. So that's really surprising, I think. I mean, listen, man. No shit talk for me. I'm not a fighter at all, but I'm watching fights for like over a decade, 15 years, maybe more. And I still don't see how people get caught with Van Vloed chokes, man. I mean, even when we're watching on TV, we see what's happening. If you are still holding a guy, you know what I mean, in the guillotine or whatever, and the guy goes in side control, let him go. You know what I mean? But that doesn't happen all the time. I mean, the thing is, I think William Knight is a better fighter, but Fabio Charante is much bigger than him. And I mean, taller than him. And will that do something for him? I don't really know, man, to be really honest. Man, this is such a difficult fight to pick for the simple reason that I don't really trust Charante, but I also don't trust William Knight here. So I'm picking a draw here. No, I'm not going with a draw. I'm going with William Knight, the decision, but I'm not sure, man. It can go either way. It can be a submission. It can be a knockout. It can be a decision. I really don't have a good read on this fight at all.
Again, this card, there's some real. This is what I love about the UFC, guys. You have to really think about these fights. Like, there's no gimme fights anymore. Like, look at this card, everything's under minus 200 odds. That's insane. Go ahead.
There is no minus 1300 or something.
Yeah, it's not like
unless Nunes or Shevchenko is fighting.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, you're right. There are some exceptions to the rule, but in general, guys, like the UFC fights these days are so well matched. Like the fighters are so good right now. It's very hard sometimes to pick a winner just because guys are so well rounded. In this fight, I do think it's a tricky fight to call, but to me, I have not been impressed at all with Fabio Charante, Marcel. He does have good submissions, but that's the only thing he has. He doesn't really have good wrestling. Striking seems non-existent to me. The chin, I don't know how good it is. I mean, he got knocked out with a flying knee by Kimura. I mean, I don't know what you could really say about that one, but to me, the guy just I have not been impressed, and the weight miss also bothers me. Multiple weight misses, guys, not just once, like Marcel said. It's a couple times now. And I look at that fight with that Myron Dennis guy. It wasn't impressive at all. I was surprised he got signed, but they needed someone to fight Manifield on short notice. That's what happened. Knight looked terrible against Jung, and that's a tough matchup though against a guy who's 6'4". That guy's basically a heavyweight. Charante's 6'1", so he's 3 inches taller, but it's not as big as Jung, I don't think. Knight before that, he looked pretty impressive at points, Marcel. He could be taken down, as we've seen, but the guy's got a pretty good gas tank. He's pretty resilient. It's very difficult though for me to like bet on him here coming off that fight because he looked so bad in that fight. Having said that, I'm not a fan of Charante's game. I don't like the way he fights. I think he likes his submissions. That's cool, but you still got choked out with Von Vloed choke. Your submission expert got choked out with Von Vloed choke, Marcel. That to me is a guy I can't bet on either. So slightly lean towards William Knight, but this is not a fight that like I'm super confident either way, just because I think it's competitive. I do. And again, Charante's a younger guy, and Knight looked terrible, but Charante didn't look good either. So it's one of those weird ones. All right, let's go to the next fight here. Baine Maleki against Josie and Nunes. This is at 135. Baine Maleki minus 155. Josie and Nunes plus 135. What's your thoughts on this one, Marcel?
It's also a very weird fight, to be really honest, man. You got Maleki, who is 5'9", and then you got Josiana Nunes, who is 5'2". So it's also a big height difference. Josiana Nunes, yeah, she won in the Brazilian regional scene a lot of fights against people pretty unknown to me, and she lost to Tyler Santos when Tyler Santos was 0-0, and that was in 2013. And if we look at Maleki, I'm not really high on Maleki, to be really honest, but she has looked good in the UFC so far. But those were all favorable matchups for her. The Duda Santana was a favorable matchup for her, in my opinion, and definitely Veronica Macedo was also a big height difference. A girl who fought at strawweight before, and against a girl who fought at featherweight before. So I think Maleki is the stronger girl here, man. I think Nunes is a good fighter, but I don't know. I think definitely with girls, the size matters in the octagon, and I think that Maleki will be stronger. Yeah,
Marcel.
you think dirty again, man. But I didn't mean it that way. You know what I mean? I saw you laughing, and you couldn't hold your laugh. So yeah, size matters not only inside the octagon, also outside the octagon, guys. There, you have it, Adam. But I think Maleki wins the fight because size matters also inside the octagon. So I'm taking Maleki via, I think, TKO, man. I think she ground and pounds her way to a finish.
So, like, one of the first things I always do when I'm breaking down these fights is, like, I look at the UFC stats, I compare, like, all the physical advantages. So the first thing, obviously, that pops out to me is the 7-inch height advantage, the 7-inch reach advantage. So already I'm like, all right, Maleki should be favored here. But then I go back and watch her fights again, and I did make some money off of her. Bro, I think she's not a good fighter at all, Marcel. She's super hittable. She was getting teed off on by Veronica Macedo, who's no striking whatsoever. Getting teed off on. The only reason she lost that fight, Veronica, is because she gassed out. This girl, Josiane Nunes, actually has a really good gas tank. And I know she's super small, guys. I think she's actually the better fighter. I actually do think so, Marcel. She's, to me, way more aggressive on the feet, better striking, more power. And she actually can grapple a little bit too, which surprised me when I was watching her fights back. Now, when she was going to fight Zara Farron, I liked Zara Farron in that fight. And I'm not saying Zara Farron is a world beater by any means, but I do think her striking is better than Baine Maleki's. Baine Maleki, I go to her Instagram just to check out what's going on. All the picture of her in bikini and stuff. And, I don't see much of her training and stuff. And to me, it's like, you look at Nunes, she's putting in the work, guys. I'm not saying Maleki's not training. She's training with Extreme Couture now and those guys. She's with Shan Bays. They all left Fortis. They went to Vegas. She went with her boyfriend, who's a Swedish karate guy, I think, or something. But again, I just think, she's using the UFC platform to almost like sell her modeling career a little bit. I don't know. I don't really buy her as a UFC fighter. Maybe I'm being harsh, guys, but I'm not impressed with her fights. She was losing handily to Duda Santana, who somehow got on top of, or someone got on top of her and finished the fight, but she was losing that fight. I can't pick her. I'm going to take Nunes here, guys. I'm going to take the dog, even though she's way smaller. I just think she's actually the better fighter. And to me, when it comes down to who's the better MMA fighter, I'm going to take Josie and Nunes. And that might be surprising because the size, but I just think it's a fade on Baine Maleki. What are you going to say?
It says everything to me that you think size doesn't matter. So.
And by the way, Baine Maleki, she has an OnlyFans. You go to her Instagram, she has OnlyFans. But it's $19 a month, so I couldn't subscribe. It was too much for me.
How do you know this?
It says on her Instagram, dude.
Like, it says on Instagram.
Yeah, all her Instagram. I look at every fighter's Instagram now just to see what kind of shape they're in. Most fighters on this card have pictures and stuff just that you can see. One guy didn't. Domingo Polart is nothing. I have no idea what this guy's doing. So that's one guy. But hers is, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just her in a bikini in almost every picture, guys. It's not her in the gym training like the other girl, Nunes.
It's pretty much what Jay Collier didn't fought for a long time, and he also didn't have pictures on his Instagram, and then you saw his first picture. And it's like,
and don't get me wrong, like she's a very attractive woman for sure. She's in the UFC, but to me, Marcel, I don't know how she has a 2-0 record. I just don't see a good fighter here, guys. But maybe I'm wrong.
The UFC also always promotes her with a 4-0 record for some reason, man. And I can't find. I think those fights are amateur fights, but they just.
Yeah, she has a few amateur fights as well. Anyways, hopefully I'm not completely overlooking Maleki here. Again, she's a bigger fighter and stuff, but she's so hittable, guys. I think she's gonna get teed off on by Nunes, who's kind of like a mini Wanderlei Silva in a way, Marcel. I'm sure. I think you said that last time. She just goes in and swarms you, man. So. We'll see what happens. All right, let's go to the next fight here, guys. We got And by the way, sorry for Leo. He said, shout out to the boys putting out a good podcast every week. Hey, man, I appreciate that. Thank you. Of course, bro. Always a one-track mind. Baine Maleki super slow. That's what I saw, Tristan. And when I was watching her fight back with Veronica, super slow, just stood there. Again,
Listen,
I'm going to be bigger, but go ahead.
Don't put me in the spot like you think I'm a fan or something. I'm not. But
no, I'm not saying
I told you I don't think. No. But now it seems like I am, but I'm not. But I think.
Oh,
listen,
fair.
man, if Josie and Nunes was a little bit bigger, I would definitely went with her. I think the UFC likes her and likes how she looks, and they want to make her a bigger star. That's what I think. That's why they give her this fight. But they can't be wrong. You saw with Bellator before what they did with James Gallagher. They thought they gave him Ricky Bandejas and Lorena against Hannah Guy. Yeah, the same thing. These things can happen.
I'm impressed, and I this is coming for someone who actually made money on her against Veronica because of the size. That's why I bet on her. This fight, even though she is the bigger fighter, I just don't see a great fighter here. That's why I'm going to bet against her. All right, we got Domingo Polart against Brian Kelleher. That's the next fight here, guys. Brian Kelleher minus 170, Polart plus 150. And again, Polart is a guy I just mentioned. There's like nothing on his Instagram. Like in the last year, he's got like one post. Whereas every other fighter in the card, you see them in the gym training for the most part. So I have no idea what this guy's up to, Marcel, which to me makes him a bit of an unknown. But give me your thoughts on this guy, Polart against Kelleher. What do you think?
You know what you get with Kelleher, man. Guy comes forward, tries to get you down, and tries to get you pretty much in a choke, But he can also, in the stand-up, he's pretty good. He's pretty well-rounded. I really like Kelleher. I think he's the kind of guy who I don't see him breaking a top 15 or anytime soon, but he's right there. You know what I mean? He is pretty much, I don't want to call him a gatekeeper because it sounds pretty negative, but he kind of is. He's kind of the guy if you don't beat Kelleher, you're not going anywhere in that division. That's what I think, But if you beat Kelleher, you can go in the division. You see, for example, the guys who beat him, pretty much all guys that beat him are ranked, besides Montel Jackson. Mm-hmm. So if you look at Polart, he fought Felipe Colares in his debut. I remember him fighting Vince Morales in the Contender Series, and I think he got dominated in the first round. In the second round, he came back and he rear naked choked him, if I'm correctly. Before that, the Adrian Yanez fight in LFA. I think Adrian Yanez actually should have won that fight, to be really honest, if I remember correctly. I think there was a lot of how do you say that? A lot of controversy in that fight. Yeah. He lost to Felipe Colares in a close fight, and then the Journey Newson one. That got overturned in a no contest, but he got knocked out in that fight. So they've been booked before against each other, but that was back when he came off the Contender Series and where he had a 5-fight win streak. And now he has his last two fights. He didn't look that great, in my opinion. And Kelleher always wins the fight he's supposed to win. And he's supposed to win this fight, in my opinion. He's overall a better fighter than Polart. So I would definitely take Kelleher here. I'm pretty sure he's a favorite in this fight, so I'm taking Kelleher. Kelleher, even in his losses, he makes it competitive 9 out of 10 times. You know what I mean? So the dude is game. Kelleher for me, man. Maybe he can even finish him with a submission. I wouldn't be surprised.
Or knockout, man. Jeremy Newsom knocked out Polart, and the fight was overturned because he smoked weed, which is just retarded, obviously. It's just beyond stupid. That's so stupid. So can I go? Is it cool if I break it down?
I'm going with a decision. I wanted to say that's it. Yeah.
No worries. Okay, so again, this is like the last fight because the first thing I do, again, I'm looking at UFC stats. I'm looking at it right now. You see the 6-inch height advantage. You see the 7-inch reach. You see he's a little bit younger. He's a southpaw, which is always nice too. Polart, right? So he's got all these things that you got to like about him. But then I'm watching his fights back, Marcel, and honestly, I'm not super impressed, man. I'm really not, Against Jordan Newsom, just basically rushed in against a shorter guy and got knocked out. Against Polaris, it was a competitive fight. Got a little bit out-grappled. It was very close, though. And against Morales, got dropped in the first round. Then second round, I think he caught a kick or something and was able to take the guy's back in a scramble, basically, and submit him. So this is a guy who barely fights, Marcel. He's had one fight the last 3 years. He barely fights. Yeah, he could come back better than ever, but, from what I've seen, he's just an average fighter. Kelleher, I'm not saying he's a world beater. I actually think gatekeeper is a good description. I don't think saying someone's a gatekeeper is negative. I think saying someone's a journeyman, that is a little bit negative. But I think gatekeeper is a fair comment because he's basically that guy. You beat him, you're in the top 15. You don't, you're not in the top 15. That's basically what happens here, Marcel. And you're right. He basically wins all the fights he's supposed to win. And, watching these fights back, I was watching them again today. The guy, he's an action-packed fighter. He can win the fight on the ground or on the feet. That's what I like about him. He has more ways to win in this fight, in my opinion. So I would lean towards Kelleher. But again, there is some risk here because Polart, with the layoff, could have improved in that time off. He is the younger guy here. But overall, from what I've seen, Kelleher is the slightly better fighter. So even despite him, again, being way shorter reach and everything, I still think he can win this fight. Daniel says Kelleher's a big 135. Yeah, he used to fight 145 in the UFC and in Ring of Combat. He should get the win here. It's pretty rested from previous damage. Polart could return better, though. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good point. But yeah, I would lean towards Kelleher. I'm actually thinking he can finish this fight, Marcel. I think this. I don't think this fight. I think there's a good chance this fight ends inside the distance. Because from what I've seen of Polart, not very defensively sound, and Kelleher has a little bit of underrated KO powers. We saw against Hunter Azure, clipped him good. So I think there's a chance he could knock out Polart. But either way, maybe the decision's fair too. All right, let's go to the next one here. Featherweight bout: Austin Lingo against Luis Saldana. Pick 'em fight, Marcel. Very, very close fight. -115 Saldana, -105 Lingo. So ever so slight lean towards Luis Saldana. What do you think here, man?
Yeah, man, Luis Saldana, coming from that Contender Series run over Vince Murdoch, Poor Vince Murdoch, man. He tried so many times to get in the UFC, and also now he was in the Ultimate Fighter. Spoiler alert, people, if you haven't seen it yet. Murdoch didn't went to the final. It was a good finish by Saldana in the Contender Series. After that, he fought Jordan Griffin, also on that ABC card where Palatnikov fought, and he won against Griffin, but I think he didn't win the fight. I had a 29-28 for Griffin. So, and the UFC cut Griffin after that. So that's what the UFC does. If you look at the fight here, I think, listen, Lingo is the guy with some dynamite in his hands, man. I think he can knock you out any moment. But he is just like Ramiz Brahimaj, also really, how do you say that? Very
one-dimensional?
No, not one-dimensional. I want to say dangerous in the first round. That's the word.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No doubt. He has five finishes in the first minute of the fight, guys. So that's something to keep in mind.
Sorry, guys. Sometimes I can't find the words. I'm trying to improve. So
you're good, Marcel. We all love you here, buddy. You're good.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yusuf Zalal, the first fight in the UFC, he didn't do great in that one. Zalal fought very well, and he won that fight. And his last fight against Kilburn looked a lot better, I think. I mean, as long as the fight goes, I favor Saldana, but I think Lingo can knock him out, man. It's very possible. So this is another fight where you're going with either with a knockout early for Lingo or a decision win for Saldana. And I'm going to go with a gamble out again. I'm taking again Lingo here via knockout in the first round. If that doesn't happen, if it goes further, if it goes past over 2.5, I prefer Saldana. But got to see what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason this fight's closely lined. This is a very tough fight to call, guys. Like, if someone's out there saying that they're super confident in the side, I'd love to know why. Because as much as I watch these guys' fights today, and there's a lot of footage of both guys out there. If you look, they're both exciting guys, and it should be a fun fight. It's basically striker for striker, from what I'm seeing, Marcel. It's basically the two strikers going against each other. You basically have Lingo with the knockout power in his hands, and Saldana prefers his kicks. And I think Saldana is a slightly better grappler too. I know Griffin was out grappling a little bit, but he got on top at some points in time. Whereas Lingo, you look at that fight with Zalal, man, just complete out grappling, which really worries me a little bit if it turns to grappling. On the feet, Lingo can knock him out, Marcel, but Saldana, he does a good job of staying at range, man. And he's got the length, and he's got those kicks, man. So slight lean towards Saldana. I think it's a very tough fight to call personally, because I think Lingo can win too, and he's improving too. So he looked great against Kilburn in his last fight, I thought. So close one. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Adam is trying to run in on me, man, with the picks, and it's funny that all fights were really 50-50, and we have the different picks. So I'm really
that's fair. I mean, we said the same thing about Bahamundis and Palatnikov. It's just the truth, though, guys. Like, you look at the odds, you basically pick them fights. So we're not saying like they're close on paper, and again, you watch them. There's not again, you know, I think in this case, Saldana, you're right. If the fight goes past the first round, he should win this fight. But that first round is going to be dangerous, man. Lingo has a lot of power, guys. There's this one knockout. He absolutely destroys this guy. What's his name? I want to get the guy's name. It was just absolutely brutal. Aaron Wood.
The one he fought right before he went to the UFC, right?
Aaron Webb. 13 seconds, absolutely brutal. And the referee was so late in the stoppage. The guy was knocked out cold. His eyes rolled back in the feet, and then the ref let him hammer fist him to death, basically. Brutal. So the guy's got power. But again, once past that first minute, I think he could slow down a bit. Let me see what you guys are saying. Daniel says, Lingo's not harmless. Thickest style is stealing Saldana. Kilburn is not, or missed this comment. Tristan says, Quinn and MMA lock it tonight like Saldana. Fair enough. I mean, I'm going to pick Saldana, but and I think Marcel is. I know Cole actually told me today that he likes Lingo as well in this fight. So I think it's competitive, guys. I really do. I mean, to me, it's a slight lean towards Saldana, but it's very, very, very slight. I think it's a close fight. What are you going to say?
I always give Cole shit, by the way, just for fun. But shout
Lingo, though. Maybe, yeah.
So shout out to Cole Shelter for a great break yesterday with Dan Hooker against Nasrat Akbaraz, by the way, man. Shout out to Cole. Yeah, no, it's an interesting fight. Obviously, the UFC, I think, I feel like they're almost using Dan as like a springboard for Nasrat to jump in the top 15 or top 10, I should say. I think they think Dan Hooker's chin might be shot now, Marcel. I think that's what's going on here. Honestly. Listen, man, I like Nasrat, but for me, it's crazy that Nasrat gets a fight against Dan Hooker and Arman Tsarukyan has to fight
I know.
Giagos.
Well, because he missed weight in his last fight or whatever. That's what he said, or 2 fights ago. Anyways, it was against Freville, I think, right, where he missed the weight.
1 pound. Yeah, true.
Yeah. All right, so we got, 5 fights left? Let's go to the next one, guys. This is another interesting fight, man. Flyweight division. We got Alexander Pantoja against Brandon Royvall. I mean, the winner of this fight, if it's impressive, they could get the next title shot for sure. So it should be a good one here. Right now we got Pantoja minus 165, plus 145 for Royvall. Give me your thoughts on this one, man. I really like this fight, man. What do you think?
My opinion, it's the best fight on the card. I love this fight. This flyweight, I'm really high on the flyweights. I love to watch this. Brandon Royvall came in the UFC as from the LFA as a champion. Didn't look good in the first round against Elliott. Turned it around and won via arm triangle choke in the second round. Against Kai Kara France, I expected him to win. He won that fight. Against Brandon Moreno, he got that shoulder injury where his shoulder popped out or something, and he was like going on the ground like pop back or something, but it didn't work, and he lost the fight to Brandon Moreno, who is the current champion. So I mean, that's not a bad loss to have on your record. If you look at Alexander Pantoja, he won his last fight against Manuel Cape or whatever you call him. He won that fight. It wasn't a great fight, but he was more busier than Cap, and he won that fight. Before that, I know many people picked him against Askarov, and man, I got to put some feathers in my own. This time, I picked Askarov, and Askarov won that fight. But I think Pantoja pretty much defeats everybody who is not a future title contender or either a future champion, in my opinion. Royvall he's still young, in my opinion, in the division, and he still has a learning curve. I really like him. I think he's a great prospect, but Pantoja is strong and he can take him to the ground. He can keep him there, I think. He also can strike with him. So a safe bet would be Pantoja decision, in my opinion. But Royvall can do crazy things, maybe can hit him, can finish him, whatever, but I'm going with Pantoja on this one.
Yeah, so I think it should be a good fight. Again, look at this fight. Royvall's so big for this division. That's one of the reasons I've been betting on him in all his fights. I bet on him all 3 of them, and it did cost me the last one, but the first 2 were money. So I'm still profitable with this guy overall. I really like the guy. He's very exciting to watch. He's a finisher too, which I love. But one thing I noticed is he definitely tends to tire as the fight goes on, Marcel, and he's only 1-4 in fights that have gone to decision in his career. 1-4. That's not a good record against a guy in Pantoja who often goes to decision and often wins these decisions. And not only that, but he can finish you with knockout power and submissions. I really like Royvall. I think he's got upside here, and I think he could win this fight. But overall, I think Pantoja is just the more solid fighter, Marcel, more well-rounded, more proven. Like you said, only lost to Askarov, Figueroa. He did lose to Ortiz a few years ago, but still, I mean, the guy, 2 wins over Brandon Moreno. 2 wins, not just 1, 2. The guy's good, man. He's very solid. And, it's a guy that sometimes I'll pick against him just because I don't think he's got that, I don't know. I don't think he's got that next level, and then he beats me, and then he wins, right? Like it's Kate, for instance. Like he showed that he's good, and it gets Figueiredo stood in the pocket with the hardest puncher in the division and almost won that fight. And it gets Askarov. That was a close fight too. So to me, there's the champ and stuff, and then he's like right there, Marcel. Like I think he's right there. Whereas Royvall right now is like here, but he could be here. So yeah. I think Royvall could win this fight, and he's got some things to like about him with the submission game, nasty submissions. But, Pantoja's never been finished. He's never been finished, guys. And Royvall wins all his fights by stoppage. So Royvall's going to have to become the first guy to finish Pantoja. I'm not sure if he can do it because Pantoja is very well-rounded, very durable, and very, very difficult to finish. So I'm leaning towards Pantoja here. There is upside on Royvall, no doubt about it. And I can see why people would like him as a dog here, but I'm going to go with Pantoja by decision. That's what I'm thinking. Royvall's so long for the division. Sure is, man. The guy's crazy long. Tough comeback fight for Royvall. I think so too. I don't think it's a bad matchup. I think that the UFC's like, hey, we still think we're high on you. We're going to fight this tough guy, but I think it's a tough fight. All right, next one. Vince Pichello against Austin Hubbard at the lightweight division. Odds for this one, another very close fight according to the sportsbooks guys. -120 Vince Pichello, +100 Austin Hubbard. Marcel, what do you think about this one, man? Another close one.
Man, Vince Pichello is the guy who gets underrated all the time. You know what I mean? He is. I think he's really good, man. He's in the UFC. He's 6-2, with his only 2 losses coming to Rustam Khabibulov by Suplex City and Gregor Gillespie. And those are 2 losses you can have on your record. You know what I mean? It's not bad. But he looked good against Jim Miller. I think the first round was for Jim Miller. He took over after that and won the last 2. Looked good against Roosevelt Roberts. If you look at Austin Hubbard, I remember Dakota Bush was a short notice opponent. He looked good against him. We talked about that fight a lot, actually, I think, before when that happened. And the thing is, he is. I think he's not that bad of a fighter, but I think his hype has gone a little bit down with Hubbard. You know what I mean? He's not very consistent. He wins sometimes, then he's losing. Yeah. And he's losing to guys, in my opinion, you shouldn't lose to if you want to come further in the division. And that doesn't mean Davi Ramos, which is a difficult fight, I understand. He's a jiu-jitsu specialist, but still, that's a guy you should win. You look at Sarukian, for example. Mark Madsen is still an undefeated guy, who's also on this card, by the way. He lost to... Yeah. His wins in the UFC are against Kyle Propalik, who isn't in the UFC anymore, against Max Roshkov, who isn't in the UFC anymore, and against Dakota Bush, who made his debut on short notice. So to go against Vince Pichello, which is kind of a veteran in my opinion, and who looks always very solid, got gas for 3 rounds, I have to favor Pichello here. I'm going with the decision win for Vince Pichello in this one. Yeah, this one's tough, guys. I think it's very competitive. I feel like it's probably going to go over 2.5 rounds, which is juiced -260 right now. But I think that a decision seems likely here. It's a competitive fight. It really is. But, for me, the one thing that I look at, Marcel, is the fact that Vince Pichello is so much older. He's 38 years old now. Like, to me, that's against a guy who's 29 years old who's in his prime. Vince Pichello is not in his prime anymore. I know he's looked good. He has looked good. Don't get me wrong. He's looked really good in the UFC. He's very underrated. Overall, 6-2 record. Very underrated guy. But I don't know, man. I think at some point he's going to slow down. And against Jim Miller, he did win that fight, but it was super close. He had to edge it out. And Hubbard's going to have, I think, as much gas to match him in this fight. And against Dakota Bush, he really showed improvements in the grappling, which I like to see. I don't know. I think it's a close one, Marcel. I'm leaning slightly towards Austin Hubbard because I think he's got more upside here as the younger guy. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. If you want to throw your comments in there about this fight, I see it as a very, very, very close fight. I think it could be a split decision type of fight. I think it's that competitive. The one thing I will say is, I look at Vince Pichello and you look at the stats with the 3.83 takedowns. That's true. But you have to remember that 2 of those fights that counted towards that score were against Anthony Njokuani against Garrett Whiteley. In 2014, he landed 16 takedowns combined. You take those out, that takedown rate goes way down, guys. So remember that. It's not as high as it seems. He's definitely a good wrestler, but I think Hubbard can match him in the wrestling. So I'm going to take Austin Hubbard, Marcel. It's very close, but I'll lean towards the younger guy. To me, it's a guy. I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, Pichello's probably a better fighter. But again, at 38 years old, I've had success mostly fading the older guys, and I'll do that again here. So Austin Hubbard decision. All right, Marcel, let's go for this one. The heavyweights, Marcel. Parker Porter and Chase Sherman, the Vanilla Gorilla. This should be a fun one for as long as it lasts. You got Chase Sherman -190, Parker Porter +165. What do you think, man? The other podcast I do on Monday, and a Dutch podcast, they call this the Marcel special. And the Marcel special, that's
Parker Porter special.
no, that's the unranked heavyweights on the main card spot. So that's the Marcel special, and where we always like, why the hell is this on the main card? You know, and again, why the hell is this on the main card? UFC, I don't know, but okay, we're gonna break it down. Chase Sherman, he had 2 stints in the UFC. He's on a second stint, right? Got cut after 3 losses. Then he went to Island Fights. He won in bare knuckle. Came back, defeated Ike Villanueva. Looked good in that fight. Then I think he got suspended, if I'm correctly, for whatever he used. I don't know exactly anymore. Came back against Arlovsky. Lost against Arlovsky, but almost everybody besides Tom Aspinall is losing to Arlovsky lately. So now he's fighting Parker Porter. Parker Porter, he looked good against Parisian, man. Not gonna lie, I think he looked very solid in that fight. Against Dawkins, I was like, man, Dawkins did really easy with him. But I think I didn't give Dawkins the respect he should have already when he fought Porter, because I think Dawkins is a top 10 guy, and he's showing it in his fights. If I look at Parker Porter, he has also a good win over Durlai Brunstrup, who has also fought at WFCA, and he fought him in CES MMA before. Actually, Parker Porter, as we all know, has also a loss to John Jones, right, in the beginning of his career in 2000, before 2010. I don't know exactly know anymore. I mean, Chase Sherman can knock him out. Parker Porter can win a decision. I'm going with Parker Porter in this one. I don't trust Chase Sherman, to be really honest. And Porter looked pretty solid in his last fight against Parisian, so I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. It's a close fight too, because if Sherman doesn't get the finish, he could run out of gas here against a guy who has a really good gas tank. Surprising. You look at Porter, right? He doesn't look like a guy that would have that gas tank, but he can go 3 rounds, as we saw against Josh Parisian. He's got some wrestling too, Parker Porter as well. But Marcel, I don't think he's got a very good chin, and that really worries me here against Sherman. He's very, very dangerous in the first round, especially. And Sherman's the bigger guy here. He's going to be 4 inches taller, 3 inches reach, and he's 4 years younger. Training at Sanford MMA, which I really like. That's one thing I do like about him in this fight. I know Porter's with New England Cartel, so good camp as well. But from what I've heard with Chase, actually, Cole interviewed him, and Cole told me that they were talking, I think it was Zoom or something, but Chase took him through Sanford. He went through the gym with him and showed him the gym. It's an amazing gym. You guys know I love that gym. I have been betting against the guy there lately just because of the matchup. In this case, though, I think I would lean towards Sherman because I think he's the more dangerous guy. But again, Porter has the better cardio. So if the fight gets extended, Marcel, I think you're onto something here. But I'm thinking Sherman puts him away in the first round. So we'll see what happens.
That gym dude that has a huge sponsor in Sanford after them, and it's a beautiful gym. I know. It's like. It's big as well. It's a beautiful gym. Henry Hoofd is there, one of the coaches, one of the main coaches, striking coaches, and Sanford is a really big partner with. I don't know Sanford something with I think Sanford Products or whatever.
It's like Sanford or Orthopedics or something. It's a medical company. They also they also sponsor the place where Bellator is going this weekend, Sanford Pentagon. Where LFA does some events there. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, I think. So
South Dakota.
Yeah, so that's interesting. They're obviously getting into the MMA space, which is cool. But yeah, I would lean towards Sherman just because I think the knockout power. Daniel's saying for the last fight with the Selecki loss was definitely concerning. But I'm just very high on Joe Selecki, man. I think he's very good. Sherman had an injury backstage before the Arlovsky fight and still fought decent. Sherman for the win. Sanford Health, yeah, exactly. These guys I'm glad they're in the space, man. You know what I mean? Like it's good to have companies like this that are, spending money to better their fighters. All right, 2 more fights, Marcel. We'll go to the co-main event here. Interesting fight here. We got Mark Madsen, the Olympian, taking on Clay Guida, a guy who's known for his wrestling, his cardio, and his pace. So Mark Madsen's going to have to work for this one, but he is the favorite here, Marcel. Minus 170 against Guida, plus 150. So what do you think is going to happen in this one, man?
It's pretty much like can Mark Madsen go 3 rounds against Clay Guida, I think, and because I don't see him finishing Clay Guida, to be really honest.
Yeah.
That's the question. The thing is, can he do that? I don't know for sure, but Clay Guida, I mean, he won against Michael Johnson, but Michael Johnson is actually Also, Michael Johnson never lived up to his potential, to be really honest. And he had big wins on his resume against Ferguson and Poirier, for example. But Guida, it's such a tough fight, man. The thing is, actually, if Mark Madsen was such a huge talent in MMA, we would lightly pick him, I think, over Guida, But the thing is, Mark Madsen is also 36 already.
Yeah.
Clay Guida is 39. It's only a 3-year difference. The thing only is Mark Madsen didn't get into the UFC until 2019. He's a former Olympian.
Yeah.
I think this fight is much closer than people think. I still pick Madsen with a decision, but if you wanna make some money, I would maybe put some on Guida. You never know, because Guida is good enough to win this fight. This is a close fight in my opinion, man. So I would favor Madsen because of his heavy wrestling and his experience, but I mean, Guida can win this fight as well. It's close in my opinion.
My initial thought for this fight was, I'm like, oh man, Mark Madsen's going to win. But then you look at the matchup, and it's like Guida. I mean, Guida's a hard guy to out wrestle too, right? So that's the thing, right? Can he do it for 3 rounds? I don't know, because against Austin Hubbard, he got really tired in that 3rd round, which is definitely a worry here against a guy like Guida, who is like an unlimited gas tank. The one thing I noticed about Clay, though, and we've seen this so many times, his submission defense sucks. That's the problem with Clay Guida. I think Madsen, if he gets him down, actually take his back and take his neck and submit him, Marcel. That's kind of what I'm thinking could happen here. So I'm actually more interested in maybe Madsen inside the distance, which is plus 370. I think he could submit Clay Guida. If he doesn't, I'm not sure, man. I think Guida could extend. If he extends the fight, might have more. He's going to have more gas. If he's able, because the thing is, Madsen, we haven't seen much of the striking, right? He does have one knockout, a brutal knockout, but that's it, really. We haven't seen much of the striking. Clay Guida, I'm not saying Clay Guida is a great striker, but he's kind of tricky on the feet too. He's weird, right? He moves weird. I don't know, Marcel. This is a weird fight, man. It's a weird one. You got a guy with 10 fights against a guy with 60 fights. That's a big difference in experience too, guys. Clay Guida's been in the UFC since 2006. He has 15 years of experience in the UFC, which is incredible. So I wouldn't completely count out Clay in this fight, but I'm still going to lean towards Madsen, even though I said that, Marcel, just because of how dominant he's been with the wrestling. I just got to go with him, because if you look at Guida, when he has fought these dominant wrestlers like a Chad Mendes or like a Dennis Bermudez, he can lose those fights. So we'll see. Should be an interesting fight, though. I'm looking forward to it. I think if Madsen wins, I would like to see him get a top 15 guy for sure. All right, let's go to the main event, Marcel. We got actually, we got the last comment. Sorry, guys. Let me get these comments. Tristan says, story of the fight will be Madsen wins the first 8-9 minutes and gasses. Guida tries to finish. Does Madsen survive for 3 rounds and wins, or does Guida pick up the last 2 rounds? I think it's an interesting fight for exactly that reason, man. Took the words out of my mouth. Madsen by choke submission. That's what I'm thinking too, Daniel. I'm seeing that too. But again, if he doesn't get that choke and finish the fight, I think there's a risk he could lose this fight. So it's an interesting one. All right. Main event of the evening, Marcel. Jared Cannonier against Kelvin Gastelum in the UFC middleweight division. Right now we have Jared Cannonier's the slight favorite, minus 150. Kelvin Gastelum plus 130. Give me your thoughts on the main event, man.
Yeah, man, this is actually also a difficult fight in my opinion. I know many people are Cannonier, but if you look at Cannonier, I for some reason I'm still not convinced that he is that much of a threat to for a championship. When we saw him against Robert Whittaker, it was a very competitive fight. I still think Whittaker beat him clearly, although it was competitive. Kelvin Gastelum, he also fought Robert Whittaker and he lost. Was also a fun fight. The thing is, it's such a difficult fight, man. It really is. If you look at Kelvin Gastelum, he lost 4 of his last 5. But who did he lose to? Against Adesanya, Till, Hermanson, and Whittaker. And if you look at Cannonier, he has a win over Hermanson. He knocked him out in the second round. I think it was even in Denmark. It was a home sore for Hermanson. This one, I can go either way. I think Cannonier will probably be the favorite, but I'm got to be with my gut feeling, man. I think Gastelum goes 5 rounds and he wins the decision here, man.
Well, I was curious to hear what you think about this fight, man, because my initial thoughts on this one was like, all right, I'm probably going to like Cannonier, but then I look into the fight and it's like, I don't know, man. I mean, the guy he's a good striker. Don't get me wrong. He is. He's a big guy for this division, but he's coming off a long layoff. He's coming off a broken arm, and he had to get surgery on it twice. That was a worry for me. I'll be honest. Every time a guy has a health issue like that, that's a worry. Kelvin, I think I think he's good, man. He's got tons of power. He's got so much experience. Look at the experience difference. Like, he's fought everyone, guys. I think Kelvin's getting a little bit underrated in this matchup, Marcel. One other thing I noticed, guys, is Cannonier struggles against southpaws. Both times he's been knocked out, guess who knocked him out? A southpaw. Sean Jordan and Dominic Reyes. Kelvin Gastelum's a southpaw, and he's very, very powerful puncher from the southpaw stance. You know, if Cannonier had more grappling, I would probably lean toward him here, but he's a striker too. I think it's going to be a striking-based fight. I like Kelvin Gastelum in this one too, guys. I like Gastelum. He's a guy that's made me a lot of money during his career, especially early on in his career. I think he's just a really solid fighter, and I know his record lately has not been good, obviously, but you know, I still believe in the guy, Marcel. I really do, and you know, he's been active, which I like. He's had 2 fights already this year while Cannonier's been out. Cannonier, again, an older guy. He's 37. You know, he's not a young guy for this division, and as good as he did look against, you know, the last couple of fights, knocking out Branch, Silva, and Hermanson, one thing I've noticed is his chin is not good, guys. He's been knocked down 4 times. You know, now, to be fair, Gastelum also has been knocked down 4 times, but they all came against Adesanya in that one fight, whereas Cannonier's have been spread out. I don't really trust his chin, Marcel. I think. What do you think? You think you can knock him out or decision? What do you think?
Is it possible, man? I think a decision, man. But Adam, how sure did you were that I was going to pick Cannonier? You think
I wasn't too sure, but like my initial thought was I was going to pick Cannonier, but then I looked
too. But then I looked into
and then I looked in the fight, and I'm like, you know what, guys? I think there's something here with Gastelum. And the initial odds were so stupid; they were minus 240 plus 195. That is insane. If you got plus 185 in Kelvin, that's an amazing line.
Should have jumped on that immediately.
I didn't see it. There's so many other fights going on, but yeah. I lean towards Kelvin. Let me get these comments, guys. Cole, he likes, here we go. Here's the opposite. Cannonier 3rd-round knockout becomes the first one that finishes Gastelum with strikes. I don't know, man. I mean, it's definitely possible, Cole. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but, you know, for me, Kelvin's got a good chin other than the Adesanya fight. But, you know, if someone's going to put it out, it probably would be the guy like Jared. Daniel says he initially had Kelvin by decision. Tristan says Gastelum is probably 29. I'm not sure if CMJ finished. Anyone can get finished, but I know what you're saying, Tristan. I think KG's faster, better footwork. It's 5. Yeah, it is a 5-round fight. And Cannonier's never been 5 rounds. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. When has he been 5? Never. Whereas, or he might actually. That's not true. He had been 5 rounds against Tony Lopez in the Alaska Fighting Championship. That was a 5-round fight. We'll give him that one, guys. But
that was a heavyweight.
Yeah, when he was a heavyweight. It's a guy who's mixed around weight class. I mean, so is Gastelum. Again, the size does worry because basically it's a welterweight against a guy who used to fight at heavyweight, which is insane. But I just think the welterweight's the better fighter. And when it comes down to it, I'm going to pick who the better fighter is. I think it's Kelvin. Marcus says, great show. A lot of toss-ups on this card. I think a lot of underdogs win. Thanks, Marcus. And I agree. I think I picked 5 underdogs, which is nuts. It's 11 fights, but there could be more than that winning. I think half the card's going to win as a dog, but we'll see. You know, that's what makes this sport interesting, guys. You never know what's going to happen. Go ahead.
By the way, shout out to Marcus, man. Always watching the show. Nubian Bookstore.
Oh, yeah. Big supporter, man. In Morrow, Georgia. If you're over in Morrow, go to Nubian Bookstore. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for today's for the UFC breakdown, guys. Any more comments, throw them in the chat. Again, we're not going to do a full breakdown, but if you want to give your quick picks, Marcel, before we get out of here for the main event of Bellator, what do you think? Chia Kongo or Sergey Karatanov? What do you think?
Sergey Karatanov.
You know, I'm thinking Kongo could pull it off. I think he could just clinch him against the fence, and he's the underdog in this fight too.
But why is this a main event, man?
Yeah, it should be the co-main, which is going to ask you about too. Boric against JJ Wilson. I'm going to go with Adam Boric. Not just because he has the same name as me, which is an awesome name. Just kidding, but I just think he's really well-rounded guy, really solid everywhere. JJ's looked good, but I'm still not convinced he's like an elite guy. What do you think?
Close fight, man. I really think JJ looked great in this last fight, and Boric looked good as well against Kennedy, right?
Yeah. So
it's a close fight, man, and it's a fun fight. It's actually the fight I'm looking forward to the most on this card. So it's I'm 50. I'm not sure yet about it, so I'm still 50-50 on it.
I mean, really quick picks for PFL. We got Kayla Harrison against Jenna Fabian. I mean, Harrison by anything, right? Yeah, we'll go to the next one. We'll go to Larissa Pacheco and Taylor Guardado. Now, Guardado's a big underdog, guys. She's a girl that, you know, is an interesting prospect. Someone that took a lot of time off the sport, came back, looked great. Pacheco's a huge favorite, which I get it because she's obviously very experienced. But I think Guardado has a chance as an underdog, Marcel. What do you think?
Pacheco is such a odd fighter to me. I never know what to think about her. Then I think like, wow, she actually looks good, and then it's like, nah, actually not. So it's like a hit or miss all the time with her. But yeah, I understand she's a favorite here. Taylor Gradado, I think she won both her fights via decision on the regular season. I mean, I think we probably will see Kayla Harris and Larissa Pacheco. So that's what I think. For the other one, I'm going with Dennis Galtsov against.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
Man,
about the heavyweight fights. By the way, the best fight odds has it all fucked up because they have PFL 8 and 9 mixed up, guys. So just remember that. These fights are this weekend. Use another website to find it perfectly. I don't know why they're mixed up. But yeah, we got Bruno Campazolo. He's a big favorite against Jamal Jones, and Dennis Goltsov against Ante Dellier. So you're picking Goltsov and Capoloza?
Yeah, Capilosa maybe. I'm not sure. I think Jones can knock him out as well.
I think both those fights can go either way. I honestly do.
Yeah.
I think they could be both dog or pass situations. So again, I'm not the greatest PFL breakdown, guys, but we're at an hour and I got to go see my kids. So get these last comments and we'll get out of here. If Cannonier wins, does he get a title shot after Whitaker? Probably. I mean, that would be a big win if you beat Kelvin. So maybe they do Cannonier versus Till Brunson winner. Izzy fights 2022. Yeah, because right now they're saying Izzy is not going to fight Whitaker by the end of the year. This is the last question we'll take, Marcel, and we'll get out of here. Any comments on Zhang's comments on seeing Weidman's leg break impacting her fight against Rose? I mean, sure seems like a lot of excuses from Weili Zhang, which is disappointing because I respect her so much as a fighter, but she's not respecting her opponent much.
You know what's even more disappointing that the UFC is going to book the rematch like
Yeah, that's what we're hearing, guys. I mean, Ariel had it in his newsletter, as you guys saw. I'm sure you guys read that. So the rumor is they're going to try doing the rematch. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Remember I said, I'm like, I think they're going to do this rematch. So
yeah,
I think it's possible. Anyways, I think that's going to be it, guys, for today's podcast. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. Really appreciate all the comments and the questions. Some new people in the chat today, which is awesome. So I appreciate that, guys. Marcel, you can plug your stuff, and then I'll plug mine. We'll get out of here, okay?
Big Marcel 24, Facebook and or Instagram and Twitter, and MMADNA.nl, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
There you go. You guys can find me on Twitter at MMAOB Podcast, MMAOddsbigger.com. It's on our YouTube channel, Spotify, iTunes, all those places you guys get them. Your podcast, BJPen.com is my home as well, MMAOddsbigger.com as well, obviously, and MyMMAnews.com. Elite Fantasy, Elite Sports Betting. I'll have my DFS breakdown on Friday. And my bets for this card. I'll have a few bets for sure. Probably on some dogs, obviously. And what else I got? Yeah, I think that's going to be it. So a lot of stuff coming out, guys. But again, appreciate it, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Be back next Monday for the recap show. Again, no podcast on Thursday going forward, but we're back Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern.